Witam was wszystkich serdecznym shalom z Izraela.
Welcome. Let me say shalom from Israel.
Trudno mi ukryć moje uczucia.
It is difficult for me to hide my feelings. I'm standing here in front of you. I'm not sure whether it is real or whether I'm dreaming that I am here with you 75 years on after what happened here, this great suffering that took place here. My number was 45,554. Schutzhäftling in German is an inmate under protection. Here, then, in that other reality that used to unfold here, this word did not mean actually protection. Care for another human being did not belong there. Human dignity did not belong there either. Quite the opposite. Even if you open a dictionary, you will not find a phrase that would describe how human dignity was trampled. So this word, inmate, and under protection, Schutzhäftling, what was it for? So much despise in there, in this devilish world, where human dignity was treated as if it were dirt. There was no way of finding shelter anywhere. I am Häftling. All those people that were in a lager would be surprised, but I did not have a striped uniform because there were too few, and I was given a Russian soldier uniform. I had to wear it on my body directly, and my legs were wrapped in a praying shawl, that shawl that is used by Jews. And I had those Dutch wooden shoes. Mind you, they were uneven. What else did they do to me? First, they tattooed a number on my arm, and it is just as visible today as it was back then. It was very well tattooed indeed. So, I couldn't recognize myself. Those blocks, they had windows very high. I raised my hands, and that is when I recognized myself to be myself. The worst thing that I went through at the very beginning, well, it is hard to say actually what was more painful to me. Whether it was the process of tattooing a number on my arm or something else. I believe, though, that was what was the most hurtful for me was the loss of hair, because the hair gave me a sense of belonging to womanhood, and they were smooth. This hair was my own, and this criminal hand touched my hair. This crown of mine was taken away from me, and I was turned into this pitiful, sad creature. My hand touched a naked skull, and I could see the contour of my face. I couldn't recognize myself. Is it really me? Where is my crown? And in the mirror, I recognized myself, or rather it was not a mirror, it was a glass, a window, and it was really me. Her braids were used for different purposes. Who could think back then that they would be used as a resource for mattresses? However, what they were really after was depriving me of my own human face, and hair would grow back, as nature commanded. And there was this dream within my heart. It was still alive. Maybe tomorrow will come one day. And tomorrow did come indeed. Memories remained, though. And let me tell you something else. I worked in 4 commandos in the lager. The first one, I would collect herbs that were somewhat poisonous, and my hands would bleed 12 hours per day. As we sit here, we remember that we would be woken up at 4 a.m. because I was collecting nettle. And actually this nettle was used to make soup. This woman, Aufseher, everybody knows who she was, what this word means. She was really cruel. She had a dog, she had a stick, and she would beat us up. What she wanted was this basket of grass to be not only full but also packed. And I spent many years in this, or rather many months in this commando. And then there was the second one, Kartoffel Commando. I was there rather briefly. There was this Lagerstrasse, the street there. I met my cousin, and she was a doctor's wife. And she worked at what we call a revier. Chimneys, smoking on the one hand, and hospitals on the other. But hospitals, well, that's just a name. And I caught all the diseases you could think of. And I still remember the German names for all those diseases. And there was this itching all the time. I was the first best candidate to be sent to chimneys. Now, Dr. Mengele, when he inspected us, we would have to stand in rows naked, and we would be driven to death. But I said I wouldn't go, and I hid under a bed, under the cover, and somehow I saved myself in this way. And there was another commando later. So I had to kill lice, and I learned then that there are 2 types of those creatures. The first type of lice live on your heads, and the second type lives in your clothes. So I would kill lice with my fingers. This would be the first job that I had to do in the morning. I had been through a terrible diseases, actually. And Canada was the next commando that I got in. It was the inmates themselves who came up with this name. So I worked in Canada. I'm sure there are people here from Hungary. I would hold Hungarian clothes in my hands. At first, I would cry, but then I had to get used to that, because that was to become my job. There were all those huge piles of clothes from different corners of the world. And there I saw a photograph of my teachers from Lutz. In 1944, the ghetto in Łódź was liquidated. So, this was my meeting. So how do you live in such a place? Jewish schools had been closed down. So I decided that I had to learn something. And there were all those languages that surrounded me. 15, maybe more people who work here will know better. So I would hear all those languages that surround me, and I thought I need to learn something. Well, I will learn a language. So I found this Belgian lady, and she became my teacher. I had no pencil, I had no paper, I had nothing to help me, and on I went with my learning. So when I left Auschwitz-Birkenau, I spoke fluent French. There was another thing that I learned here. Poems and melodies that were created by inmates. Krystyna Żywulska was one of them. And her poem became our prayer. It's a very long poem. I'm not going to recite it here. I still know it by heart, like I did all those years ago. So, this poem, Krystyna Żywulska's poem, Marching Out into the Field, was known to me in the camp as Marching Out of the Gate. It became our prayer here. The description of our suffering was an expression of each one of us. However, not every prisoner was able to describe the painful reality in such a manner. The main source of strength was the crazy lust of revenge for so much agony and so many complaints, bayonets into the brain and daggers to the neck. The words of revolt wandered from mouth to mouth and only changed slightly depending on the memory and personal associations of female prisoners. The thought of revenge became a source of strength, allowing to endure the long days and nights of inhumane suffering. I continue learning all the time. Now, what helped me to survive was that I myself decided to do something for myself. I decided to choose what I want rather than following orders. However, I did not get to be liberated on the 27th because we could hear the Russian army approaching, their cannons firing.
Nie było wyzwolenie, tylko było po prostu wygnali nas na marsz.
So basically, I did not get to experience this liberation. I was driven out and made to march. Could I have some water, please?
Troszeczkę tylko, bardzo mało, dziękuję.
Just a little bit, not much.
Tak myślałam tam, to znaczy tutaj.
So that's what I thought back then.
Sen ściętej głowy, sen o wolności.
So it was a dream about freedom,
zemsty,
and a heart beat to the pace of revenge for all that suffering, because we had to wait in a queue to death.
Kraje świata nie czyniły nic.
And various countries in the world did nothing. And I still have this feeling today. Where was everybody? Where was the world who could see that, who could hear that, and yet did nothing to save all those thousands?
A co będzie dalej? Świat jest...
So what now?
Tak. Ponieważ
The world.
Uczenie było moim marzeniem.
It was my dream to learn.
Tak, jeszcze chciałam powiedzieć, jak to było. Przepraszam, jestem bardzo...
Apologies.
Tak więc powiem
Let me just say it from the bottom of my heart, rather than reading out from a piece of paper.
W Auschwitz-Birkenau do likwidacji obozu.
So
I moją ostatnią pracą
I was meant to liquidate Auschwitz-Birkenau. What was my last job in Canada?
Które było nadane przez więźniów.
Mind you, Canada was a name that Sonderkommando, the inmates, came up with.
Bo Kanada jest bogaty kraj.
Canada is a rich country, isn't it?
Wszystkie rzeczy, które przynieśli ze sobą
And in Canada, there were all these items brought with them by all those inmates from all these countries. This is where they were collected.
To wszystko widziałam.
And I saw it all. Now, the upside to working in Canada was that you could eat things. We would eat whatever was brought by people. Because people coming here had been told that they were being taken to work. They had been asked to take some food with them. So all this food was being brought to Canada. And we were sickly and thin. We would eat that. Can you eat such things? Well, back then, anything was possible.
A jeszcze jedna rzecz, która pomogła żyć w tym piekle.
There was one more thing that helped us to live in this hell. Friendship.
Znaleźć grupę ludzi.
You could find a group of people who would help one another. Sure, the Holocaust are not only about the terrible things. And what about the righteousness among the nations that helped? There are many other things, subjects that can be told to children. I have the struggle, namely, I would like the subject to be introduced at an earlier stage. Why so?
13-14 lat, to już...
In various countries where children are 13, 15 years old, it's already too late. Because at this point they are undergoing certain physiological changes. And what they think about is themselves and their position in a social group. So a question: is it necessary to teach that subject? Is it possible? I have an answer to those questions. Yes, it is very much necessary, and it is by all means possible. Why is it truly necessary? We live in the world of the media, and we have those phones, iPhones, whatever its name is. People play with those objects, even toddlers. So children grow up playing with those iPhones, and they know more than we would like them to know. For that reason, this subject, this topic needs to be taught as early as possible. Well, in Israel, it's different because we have those sounds. Children ask why they hear those sounds. However, in other countries, they don't have that. I'm sure there are teachers here. I'm addressing the teachers at this point. First, you need to learn what children know and what is the source of their knowledge. You need to learn what they would like to know. I've been to various places. I've been to Argentina, to Canada. I've been to America many a time, and I spent 3 years in England. I wanted to learn, so the first thing that I did was I picked up Hebrew very fast. I went to this teaching college. Also, I worked as a kindergarten teacher. Children would approach me about why I had this thing written. Well, for 40 years I've been looking for an answer. Mind you, in museum you have 4 books in Polish. They have been translated from Hebrew. Well, for the most part. They are meant to be used in schools. What else should I say? Maybe that I would like to cry, because only with tears I can tell you about this past. I can see so many people here. You are a source of comfort to us. I hope you will all try to preserve the memory of this place and other sites where people, innocent people, died. People from various nations. I hope that you will make sure you'll bear this responsibility so that this terrible thing will never happen again.
Bardzo dziękujemy.
Thank you so very much.